Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with the 229th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We're starting with 97 people. Everybody is more than welcome. We're going to be joined in a few minutes by the great U.S. Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland. We're going to be talking about election protection, voter rights, nuclear power, the ongoing fascist assault on American democracy. And it's going to be quite a full 2 hour and 20 minutes. But we're going to start with our wonderful poet laureate, who's out in rattlesnake country, Mimi Gurman. Mimi, do you want to give us your three-line poem, please?
Hmm, I do. How's the sound? Are we all good?
You sound good and you look good, and that rattlesnake going across your floor is not a problem.
Okay, great. I'll tell it to be quiet. I started a new series of poetry called The Choreography of War, and this is one of those poems. I stroke the beard of freedom and confess my subversive desire for peace.
Hey, all right, we love it. Thank you so much, Mimi. That's like three-quarters of a haiku, right?
I told you it would be quick today, so
Well,
that we
it was,
don't
you
take
know
any of
what? It was
Jamie's.
so quick. Will you read it again?
I will read it again and thank you for asking. From the choreography of war, I stroke the beard of freedom and confess my subversive desire for peace.
Well, there's nothing more subversive than peace. We know that. And I have come to the conclusion that love is the miracle of transcending the distance between our physical bodies and fusing our souls. So there
Love
you
is all, Sluggo. Love is all.
Love is all. Love is all you need. And we are climbing. I know everybody's here in anticipation, and many of you are here in anticipation of the gay Congressperson, Jamie Raskin. We have Mike Hirsch to thank for that. Mike, thank you for inviting Congressperson Raskin. Our engineer is Steve Caruso in Central Ohio. And we are seeing right now, our nation is in the throes of perhaps the most impactful legislative battle in our history, which is this horrific bill that Donald Trump has put forward, basically determined to extinguish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, as well as the basics of our core democracy in this country. And we're going to be talking with Congressperson Jamie Raskin about that. We're joined but with Howie Hawkins, former presidential candidate on the Green Party. Howie, great to have you with us. David Saltman, whose illustrious career in broadcasting would require about an hour to discuss. Kevin Camps is going to be with us. Kevin, I'm going to hope to give you our format is we have lined up people to after Congressperson Raskin gives his talk to ask 60-second questions. If we can keep it to 60 seconds each, we will hopefully get a bunch of people in. We are also joined by the mayor of Waldport, Oregon, Mayor Heidi Lambert, who is involved in one of the most interesting and important legal battles in our country today, the battle of a small town mayor duly elected to keep her seat in the face of a fascist assault. And we may ask Congressperson Raskin to consider putting in an amicus brief in the lawsuit that's going on that. We have Chuck Panaccio with us, and we're hoping also to be joined by Mimi Kennedy, the great actress, and Greg Palast, one of our great voting rights election protection activists. Meanwhile, very quickly, Howie Hawkins, you were a pioneer, have been a pioneer of ranked choice voting. And I see John Steiner is with us from Colorado. We got the horrible news this morning that one of the people who was marching in Boulder, Colorado, for the freeing of the hostages in the Middle East, has died of her wounds from the firebombing that happened in Boulder. A horrible, horrible situation, and our hearts go out on that. And John Steiner, it's good to have you and Margot with us as always. Howie Hawkins, you have helped pioneer the rubric of ranked choice voting and instant runoffs. Can you tell us very quickly what you think the impact of that has been in this mayoral race, which was won by Mamdani and Linder, the progressives in that race? Howie, what can you tell us very quickly about ranked choice voting and its possible future in the American electoral scene?
Well, what it does is eliminate the spoiler effect. So people could vote for and rank the progressives, Mamdani and Lander, without worrying that the vote would cancel each other out like it would in a plurality election. So the real majority would come through. Now, in this case, they are going to count them, and Lander's votes are going to give Mamdani enough to go over the 50%. That count will be released tomorrow, presumably. The problem in New York is that they got this Frankenstein. It's ranked choice voting in the primaries, but plurality winner in the general. And I know because I talked to a lawyer on the Charter Commission who was associated with the Democratic Party. They didn't want ranked choice voting in the general election because the Greens might run effective campaigns for those 51 city council seats. So they thought they were going to exclude us. The irony is Mamdani's not over the finish line yet. In the plurality election, a Cuomo or a Adams or somebody else the billionaires are backing could win, with less than 40% in a 3 or 4-way race. And the irony will be the Democrats set that up so they have a rational process for the primary, but the general is plurality because they figured, well, whoever wins the Democratic primary is going to coast to the general, so we can leave it plurality and keep the Greens out. The irony is it may come back to bite them because Mamdani, who won the primary, isn't necessarily going to win the general. And that's due to plurality election.
And Howie,
Well,
a couple things real quick, Howie. Just to be clear, first of all, we're a nonpartisan Zoom, so we welcome everybody who wants to Zoom with us. Number one. Number two, the Democrats don't unilaterally set the rules for voting in the general. The Republicans are also involved with that. The Greens and other people should be, but have been frozen out. So the Democrats don't unilaterally do it. And unfortunately, a lot of the Democratic insiders don't want Mamdani to win. So let's just keep a few things very clear. The Democrats are not a monolith. And unfortunately, there are too many corporatists who, backed Cuomo and may move on to back one of the other people who don't have the nomination.
But it is
Okay.
the Charter Commission that came up with that proposal was dominated by Democrats. It was their proposal.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Clearly, in the general election, we can expect Andrew Cuomo to unite with Eric Adams in some way, the incumbent, and of course, Mamdani will run in relationship in some kind of relationship with Linder. So it's going to be a very interesting race come November, and but certainly an earthquake in Democratic Party politics here with Mamdani's victory. Ray McClendon is with us from Georgia with a pile of voting rights issues there. Carl Grossman, the great No Nukes leader, is also with us. I do want to mention a very important announcement by Tom Tillis, the incumbent Republican senator from North Carolina. I think many of us know, and I think we're well over 199 people right now. Tom Tillis, the incumbent Republican senator, U.S. senator from North Carolina, has announced that he's not going to run for re-election. Now, I saw it, and I urge everybody that you can easily find a speech that Tom Tillis gave in front of the Congress. He's a Republican from North Carolina, but quite a sane one. And he gave a marvelous speech about why he was not going to run for re-election and why Trump's bill here is an egregious assault on Medicaid, which is so important to us. I strongly recommend everybody Google Tom Tillis and his speech in front of the Congress here. It's a very big deal that he has announced he's not going to run for re-election, because if the Democrats can persuade the very popular former Governor Roy Cooper to run for that Senate seat, he will most likely win it. And there will be a flip of a seat in the Senate, which, as we know, has a big impact these days. David Saltman has a hand up. Go ahead, David. Let's get you unmuted. And John Seeley, as we wait, if you want to get in a couple of words before we're joined by Congressperson Jamie Raskin, that would be fine. David?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go for it, please.
Yeah, Howie, I live in New York, and this was my first ranked choice election. And I've been saying to everybody, I totally agree with you. It doesn't work. In fact, it works the opposite way, unless you have ranked choice in both the primary and the general. The effect, in my opinion, and tell me if you agree with this, what you said, the spoiler effect goes away. But what happens when it's only in the primary is it cuts out good candidates. So Brad Lander is not on the ballot at all, and Mamdani and Cuomo and
Eric Adams.
They're on the ballot twice because they're both running for two different parties. So unless you correct me if I'm wrong, but it strikes me that unless the entire election is ranked choice, it's a disaster.
Well, the Democratic,
Howie, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the Democratic primary determines who the Democratic nominee is. And I think that's fair. You know, it should be the Democrats do that. And a ranked choice vote is the way to find the candidate that is most supported by the Democrats. So Lander wasn't. Now, there was a question leading into the primary if Zohran Mamdani would take the working families line if he lost to Cuomo. And there was a good article in City and State where the leaders of DSA, Mamdani's campaign, and Working Families Party said, no, we won't use it. We'll just let Cuomo go ahead. But they could have. And then you get to the general, you know, you'll find out who's the most popular in a ranked choice vote, not in a plurality vote. So I think it's fair that Lander's not on the ballot unless he was put up an independent line to run, you know, anyway, like Cuomo and Adams did. But that shows they are, even though they claim to be Democrats, not that loyal to the Democratic Party. They didn't pledge to support the winner. And so they're sore losers.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting election. There's no doubt about it. And but right now, the focus, of course, nationwide has to be on this horrible bill that has been put forward by the Republicans and by Trump, but is supported by, well, very few, but some Democrats, that, as we know, would destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, as well as the basics of our democracy. We're joined by Marianne Williamson. Marianne, it's great to see you. I've been trying to get a hold of you. We want you to come back on as a guest. I know we had some scheduling problems last time we tried that. But Marianne, if you will contact me after the call, and we can arrange a date for you to come on to speak to us, that would be great. I think you're unmuted, Marianne. You want to say hi?
I'm trying here. I'm having a
Yeah,
hard
you're good. You're good. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't get the video off. Yeah, thank you, Harry. It was always so good to see you. And
Likewise, likewise.
this is just such an awful time. Awful, awful, awful.
Well, we need your sage advice. So if you'll come on and be our guest in the coming weeks, we would appreciate it. We appreciated your presence as a candidate, and you obviously haven't folded your tent. So it's great to have you with us, and please do join us in the future. So please contact me.
Sure.
Okay, great to have you.
Thank you.
I want to mention to Kevin Camps, Kevin, we now have 4 governors at least who are supporting the alleged rise of nuclear power. And I wanted, Steve Caruso, I sent you the link. There's an extremely important omnibus article in today's New York Times about the rise to domination of the global renewable energy industry by China. And, on the one hand, it's heartening because 80% of the new energy capacity, and Carl Grossman knows this very well, 80% of the new, I don't know if Ron Leonard's on with us, 80% of the new, there it is, electrical capacity in the world is now being built with renewables, solar, wind, geothermal, and battery storage. And the upshot of this article in the Times, which is a very powerful piece, very comprehensive, Steve, I think, has posted the link there. I highly recommend it to everybody to take a look because it is our future. On the one hand, it says that China is going to is dominating the transition to renewables worldwide, which is not a great thing for the United States. But on the other hand, it emphasizes that this transition is happening and it's critical for that. We are pushing one of our campaigns affiliated with these calls, these Zoom calls, is to first and foremost get Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles totally solarized because the position of Los Angeles in the world, and also the fact that the Olympics are coming to LA in 2028, and Dodger Stadium will be the venue for baseball. And we want at least one of the major facilities in the 2028 Olympics to be totally solarized. Kevin, do you have a quick talk on what's happening with the Democrats and renewables? Because we want to raise that with Jamie Raskin. Kevin Camps, are you unmuted? No, you're not unmuted. And John,
I'm unmuted.
Get to you.
Yeah.
Hello,
Oh.
Kevin?
yes, I'm here.
Okay, so we have this bill now includes, this Trump bill includes not only killing subsidies, federal subsidies for renewables, but also taxing renewables. This is a new
Hey,
twist.
Sluggo, I don't mean to interrupt, but we were joined by Congressman Jamie Raskin.
Okay, Kevin, can we come back to you afterwards? And John Seeley,
Yes.
I know you've got your hand. We'll come back to you. We do want to welcome Representative Jamie Raskin. Jamie, you're with us?
We've got to
Jamie
make him a
Raskin?
co-host. He's been a
Okay.
co-host. Okay. We're ready to
Jamie
go.
Raskin, you're with us?
Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you? We're still working to get that statue up the street in DC with your father to replace General McClellan. We hope that happens, and we're still pushing for recognition of Sally Hemings as the third First Lady of the United States. But in the middle of a fascist takeover, let's have a great intro for you from Mike Hirsch. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's always a great honor to welcome my friend Jamie Raskin to any Zoom or birthday party or anything whatsoever. Jamie, you're such a positive force of nature. You're so wise, smart, and humorous. You bring optimism wherever you go. Literally, people will say so-and-so doesn't need any introduction. Well, you don't really need an introduction, but I'll give you a brief one anyway. I've known Jamie for quite a while. I was in the small group of people that urged you to run for state senate when it seemed impossible. And you went ahead and you made the impossible seem inevitable. And the rest is history. And in this point of history, this dark time, it's really great to know that there are people like you who are leading the fight to protect democracy, to foster democracy and freedom, and to uphold the Constitution. You went from teaching it as a law professor to living it as a member of Congress, and I couldn't be prouder to have you as my member of Congress and to welcome you to this Zoom. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Yes, Jamie, this is our 229th gathering. You were with us once before. We have 245 people in the audience, and we're being live streamed, and this will be rebroadcast. So, and I assume behind you, that is not a hall of Congress, but we're happy to have you with us. So please, in this darkest time, our calls do have a strong focus on voting rights and election protection, and we will focus on that as well as on renewable energy. But we want to hear from you first. So, Jamie Raskin, please take it away.
Well, thank you kindly. That means a lot to me. Mike, thank you for your very sweet, kind words. And yes, P-Day means a lot to me. I think you were probably the first group ever to endorse me. I think Hirsch got the endorsement for me when I was running for the state senate. And those were the days when I was the underdog of all underdogs. I ran against a 32-year incumbent who was the president pro tem of the Maryland Senate and had introduced pro-Iraq war resolutions, had introduced legislation to expand the death penalty, was blocking marriage equality. And so anyway, I got to run on a totally progressive Democratic platform. I will never forget your guys being there with me. And I remember when I announced our local paper had an article quoting a pundit who said Raskin's chances of victory are considered impossible. And then 9 months later, we got 67% of the vote.
Wow.
And the Washington Post had an article quoting a pundit who said Raskin's victory was inevitable. So we went from
Well,
impossible
let's hope
to
the same happens. Let's hope the same happens in 2028 when you run for president. But go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. And I thank PDA for your steadfastness and your perseverance through these years because, we're obviously in the fight of our lives with these people. And, to talk about authoritarianism, which PDA has been talking about for a long time, is no longer seen as hyperbole by anybody. I mean, we are up against it everywhere we turn. So, look, when we say we're defending democracy, it leaves me a little bit cold because it makes it seem like democracy is a static collection of practices and rules. Democracy is always a project. It's always an unfinished draft. It's always something in motion. And PDA understands that and has been fighting always for a more perfect union to open up democracy. I mean, when we defeat these people, and we will, when we get through this nightmare, and we will, we can't go back to where we were before. I mean, take just the question of statehood, for example. And I'm not talking about statehood for Canada or for Greenland or for Panama, independent countries that don't want to be states. I'm talking about Washington, D.C. I'm talking about Puerto Rico. I'm talking about millions of disenfranchised U.S. citizens who are in the Republic. We need a constitutional amendment on the right to vote. We need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act so we can undo the severe damage the Supreme Court inflicted on us in Shelby County versus Holder, where they basically decapitated the Voting Rights Act and Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act by abolishing the pre-clearance provisions of it. So, the reason we need a constitutional amendment on the right to vote is so we're not constantly playing catch up and defense on all of these voter registration obstacles, on all of the voter suppression mechanisms and the disenfranchisement schemes like, if you miss an election, and you miss an election because we didn't tell you, we just moved the polling place, but you miss an election, then we throw you off the rolls. Then you've got to go register again, every other Thursday between 4 and 4:30 down at the county courthouse. I mean, come on. And this sort of stuff is just going on all over the country. When you look at Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, anytime I go out to these states and they invite me there, I'm talking to the voting rights groups, and it's just outrageous, the rules and the regulations that are taking place. So anyway, we got to fight not just to defend democracy, but to expand democracy, to revitalize democracy, and to move forward. And that's true in the political sphere, and it's true in the economic sphere. It's true with respect to the courts that have been utterly kidnapped and deformed by the Federalist Society and by Donald Trump. And that's why, I was very proud of the millions and millions of people who came out on No King's Day, because ultimately it's the people who are going to save this experiment in constitutional democracy from fascists who would try to destroy everything that, our prior generations of civilizing movements have built. So I'm happy to yield back and take any questions or thoughts from people.
Okay, Jamie, that's fabulous. Thank you. You know, our theory is, and we've discussed this, that the attack on the Iranian nuclear facility was really an attack on the 5 million people who marched for No King's Day. Donald Trump is the master of changing the agenda, and that, as far as I'm concerned, that's where those bombs were really aimed at the 5 million who showed how this fascist takeover has no popular support. What we can do is limit everybody to 60 seconds. Jamie, I want to introduce you to Ray McClendon. Ray, if you got 60 seconds, please. Ray is one of the great democracy activists in our country. He's based in Atlanta. And then we're going to go to Alan Minsky for 60 seconds as well. Ray McClendon, can you introduce yourself to Congressman Raskin, please? Ray has an organization, Communities United. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, hello, Congressman. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm with a group called Communities United for Justice. We've formerly with the NAACP in Georgia and have been working in voting rights in Georgia and across the Southeast with the Center for Common Ground and the great Andrea Miller. One of the things that we're very concerned about now, in addition to this big ugly bill, is what are the voting rights provisions and election provisions that are hidden in this bill that could potentially impact voter suppression escalating in various elections, both municipal and federal elections going forward. And I wanted to get your take on it. We've heard a lot of different rumors about what's in the bill, but wanted to get your take on the impact on voting and voting rights that's being backdoored into this bill.
Well, Ray, I appreciate it very much. And the reason why there's different, rumors and conflicting reports is because it keeps changing on a daily basis. We don't know exactly what's in there now. And all of this is being done behind closed doors. And until the Senate votes, we won't know finally what's in there. I mean, everybody is very concerned about the pasting of the SAVE Act into this monstrous job killing, budget killing reconciliation bill. The SAVE Act basically says that when you go to vote anywhere in America, you've got to bring with you either your passport or your birth certificate and your driver's license. So you've got to prove that what your current name is, your driver's license, corresponds equally exactly to your birth certificate or to your passport. If it doesn't, then you've got to somehow get that corrected. Well, the first thing that pops out of you is immediately that 35 or 40 million women in the country who've gotten married and changed their name, which is still a majority of women, are not going to be able to vote. They would need to create some kind of certificate explaining that they've changed their name. Then they've got to produce their wedding certificate and whatever change of name form goes along with that. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? I mean, this just makes no sense at all. They're presenting this as a mode of certification that's required to keep non-citizens from voting, which of course is not a problem in the country because there is no evidence that non-citizens are voting illegally anywhere in the country. I mean, you're talking about a couple of dozen cases. You're far more likely to be hit by lightning than you are to live in a place where non-citizens vote. And the non-citizens who voted last time, there was like a handful of cases, all said that they went to vote for Trump because he told them to go and vote. I mean, they're all Trump voters, like the ones who do that. So in any event, this is ridiculous. We have gone all the way through American history up to this point without a requirement that you show that your current name matches your birth certificate name. And if not, you've got to produce the wedding certificate or the change of name form or what have you.
Well, this is just a backdoor way of repealing the 19th Amendment, is one way you could put it. Jamie, it's very important, please, that we have Ray McClendon in touch with your staff. Ray
Please.
is an incredibly important leader in the voter rights movement and is based in Atlanta, where a lot of it really takes place. So if there's some way we can put you in touch with Ray on a working basis, it's really critical. We appreciate that.
Please do. Mike Hirsch has all my numbers and everything.
Yes. Okay. Alan Minsky, and then we're going to follow it up with Mayor Heidi. Go ahead, Alan
Gonna
Minsky,
do
and then
this
we'll
in
go to Ali
60
Hawkins.
seconds. And first, just very quickly, what is the status of the SAVE Act with the big ugly bill right now? How deeply enmeshed is it, or is it not? Just to clarify.
Well, the last I heard was they were not going to be able to attach it
Right.
because of the parliamentarians' ruling that it was
By
not
reconciliation,
fiscal. So,
yeah, not a reconcilable issue. So, okay, very quickly, thanks to Ray bringing up the Center for Common Ground, and on Wednesday, we are actually having a launch event of the Tim Carpenter Institute in coordination with the Center for Common Ground, in which the newly formed Tim Carpenter Institute will introduce its Democracy Defenders program, in which we have Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, former Assistant Secretary of State Robert Wilson from North Carolina. And we're going to build out in 51 states democracy defenders in advance of the 2026 midterms so that people can understand exactly, as Jamie said, how to vote. However, I want to just pivot a little bit. We're obviously 4 days away from Friday, the 249th birthday of this country. And your thoughts on how we, as progressives, I believe we are the true patriots. You are understood to be a brilliant patriot, and how we, who are progressives, can reclaim and secure the messaging heading to our 250th anniversary from MAGA, that we are the patriots.
Yeah.
We are the ones with the beautiful vision.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for your leadership and activism and for that point. I mean, that's why I love the No King's Day so much, because it was all about reclaiming not just the mantle of patriotism, but the mantle of American history. I mean, Donald Trump is a guy who never, ever talks about the founders. He never quotes, I mean, even the most conservative, pro-slavery, like George Washington, he would not talk about Jefferson, certainly not Tom Paine or Ben Franklin, any of the radical Democrats, because he's not interested in that. He's interested in dictatorship. He wants to blink away all of American history, and it's going to be so important for us to talk about all of the civilizing struggles of American history and the rebellion against monarchy and the rebellion against the merger of church and state. So, yeah, I mean, I think like that's our obligation. We've got to help rediscover that. I mean, they're trying to destroy American history and blink out the truth of everything that's happened to us. And you saw the thing about how they canceled the Enola Gay exhibit at the Smithsonian because somebody plugged in the word gay and it came out Enola Gay, which of course was the name of the wife of the pilot who flew the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But they just got rid of it because they thought it was LGBTQ. I mean, we're dealing with morons in addition to fascists at this point.
Well, I think we should rename that. We should rename that airplane the Enola Lesbian. I think that would be a great step forward. Jamie, I want to introduce you to Heidi. Alan, an honor to have you with us. Thank you. Alan and I are going to be co-hosting a sports show coming up on Pacifica. If you want to join us, Jamie, you can talk about the Orioles.
Actually, wait, but just on that point, if you haven't seen it, you've got to check out Surviving Ohio State, which is an extraordinary HBO
I heard
documentary
about that. Yes.
About the sex abuse scandal at Ohio State. And my counterpart on the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, co-stars in this documentary. You do not want to miss this.
No, having grown up in Columbus, I'm definitely, and then gone to the University of Michigan, I will definitely watch that movie. I want to introduce you to Mayor Heidi Lampert was elected mayor of Waldport, Oregon, and a fascist city council threw her out. She got back in, and she's now in a very important court case. And you, being the genius lawyer you are, we were thinking maybe you might want to look at this case and consider signing on as an amicus. Heidi, do you want to introduce yourself to Congressman Raskin, please?
Sure. First, I have to say thank you. Also, so odd that you're taking time out of your busy schedule right now. I too am a warrior for democracy. I ran to be mayor to be an example to my kids, not expecting to be unlawfully thrown out. And my council thought that they could just reverse their charges against me and everything's fine. But I'm going to court on July 15th asking the judge to not dismiss my case and to hold this council accountable for the damage that they've done to me and my reputation and to politics in general. So I guess I'm humbly asking if your office could help me with an amicus brief.
Well,
Go ahead, Jamie.
Yes, send me the stuff by all means. I'd love to look at it, and I will give you my thoughts and whatever I can do to help. Where were you mayor? I'm sorry, I missed the name of your town.
It's in Waldport, Oregon. It's a little coastal town of 2,000 people on the West Coast, which seems very far from you. However, it's very relevant.
Terrific. Well, please send me all this stuff. I'd be delighted to look at it.
Well, it's an
Okay.
astonishing story, and the major motion picture will star Jodie Foster as Mayor Lambert. So you want to be a part of this. We've gone into it in a great deal. It's really a mind bender. This is Howie Hawkins. Thank you, Heidi. This is Howie Hawkins. Howie was the Green Party candidate for president and is one of the pioneers of ranked choice voting, which is, of course, a big deal now. And so he wanted to talk to you for a minute about ranked choice voting and instant runoffs. Go ahead, Jamie. Howie.
Well, Congressman, I really appreciate your advocacy for ranked choice voting, including proportional ranked choice voting with the Fair Elections Act, and for getting rid of the Electoral College and having a direct election for president. So I wanted to ask you, I know there's only, last time I looked, 7 or 9 co-sponsors of the Fair Election Act. Where are the progressives? That's one question. Another, and this is to you, it would be great to have a bill in the hopper we could campaign around to replace the electoral college with a ranked choice direct vote for president. And the third thing is ballot access. I'm in New York. Thanks to Andrew Cuomo, it now takes 45,000 signatures in 42 days to get on a statewide ballot. So in the 22 governor's race and in the 24 presidential race, we only had Democrats and Republicans on the ballot for the statewide offices. And we're the only state in the country that only had 2 choices in the last presidential race. So John Conyers had a great bill in the late 80s called the Fair Elections Act. So it'd be great to have that in the hopper too to organize.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Howie.
Howie, thank you for all those great questions. Let me see if I can remember them. Number one, yeah, we only have 9 people on our bill. That was before the New York City mayoral election. And believe me, I stayed up that night and I wrote another Dear Colleague letter to the Progressive Caucus saying everybody needs to get on ranked choice voting now. The traditional problem with ranked choice voting has been that in the jurisdictions that don't have it, people don't understand it. It seems complex. Politicians are instinctively conservative and hesitant about changing electoral rules that got them elected. But I do think that the Zoran's victory will galvanize the progressives behind it. And it showed not only that ranked choice voting creates majority winners, it also reduces negative politics and it rewards positive coalitional politics, which is what you saw with Mamdani and Lander and some of the other candidates getting together and cross-endorsing and helping each other. We will do the constitutional amendment for a direct national popular vote. As you know, I'm very involved in the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which is not itself a constitutional amendment. It's getting the state legislatures to say they'll cast their electors for the winner of the nationwide vote rather than the winner of the state. And we are now more than 2/3 of the way there. So we're making great progress there. Of course, a constitutional amendment is a 2/3 vote in the House, 2/3 vote in the Senate, 3/4 of the state. So that's going to be further down the road. But I'm all for what you're saying, which is a direct national popular vote with ranked choice voting rules rather than, a plurality winner, which is what we've got today. Well, today we don't even have a plurality winner. You could have just a loser, like, Donald Trump was in 2016. And we've had, 4 of those in our history. So, yeah.
Great. Stephen Caruso is our engineer. Jamie, Steve, you want to have a question for Congressman Raskin?
Yeah, being able to vote should be an equal protection issue. And also recently, um, the Supreme Court, sponsored by Amy Coney Barrett, denied the rest of us equal protection under the birthright citizenship. So, it's just, they're just dancing around the edge of reality of the Constitution. They have no grip of what the Constitution is telling us in the past, in the future, and it's just too much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. I mean, you've got a progressive constitutional sensibility there. The way that the court has framed it is voting is an equal protection issue within your state if the state has given the people the right to vote. But it's not worked for like people in Washington, D.C. or people in Puerto Rico or former prisoners like in Richardson versus Ramirez, people who've attacked their exclusion from the outside. And that's why I say we need a constitutional amendment guaranteeing the right to vote. What didn't exist when the Constitution was written, because of course, the vast majority of people couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote, enslaved people couldn't vote, people without property and wealth could not vote, people under 21 couldn't vote. In some states, if you weren't a Christian, you couldn't vote, and so on.
Well, that's my amalgam. I've got Kevin Camps with us. If you can unmute Kevin Camps, that would be great. Congressman, we understand now that the bill is going to include an attempt to tax renewable energy. In addition to killing the subsidies for solar, wind, tidal, geothermal, we now have 4 Democratic governors supporting more nuclear, which is an absolute suicide pact as far as we're concerned, including Governor Newsom in California, who's been leading a charge to kill solar energy. What can we do to reverse the Democratic Party's slide into supporting nuclear and opposing renewables?
Well, I mean, this bill is going to be the moment that will clarify all of that stuff because, I mean, even Elon Musk is saying this is an investment in the past and the energy systems of the past and pulling the plug on solar and wind and the renewable energies that will keep us going. So this is, a critical moment and one more reason for us to do everything we can to put the pressure on those Republicans in swing districts, or at least try to get the more, Freedom Caucus Republicans to say, what does this do to cut debt or deficit? It's going to add $3.3 trillion to the debt.
Right. Well, and I'm going to predict you heard it here first that Tesla is going to go out of business. They cannot compete with the BYD car from China. I don't know if you're aware of BYD, but it's the breakthrough in electric cars, and the Chinese. You should see this piece in the Times today, Jamie, about China taking over the lead in renewables. Clearly, the Times timed it for this bill, because the Times has become very supportive of renewables. And this bill is devastating to renewable energy. And the Democratic Party has got to get on board on this, please. Rudy Arredondo, please. Rudy, and I wanted Marianne, if we can unmute Marianne Williamson and also Kevin Camps, that would be great.
Hey,
Please.
Rudy.
Hey, how you doing, Jamie? Thank you so much for your great work in the Congress. And, we're very concerned as farmers and ranchers with regard to the fact that we don't have a farm bill as yet. And we are anticipating at least about 40% decrease in food products. And we're dealing with, the dismantling, or actually the dismemberment of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And some of our farmers have not been paid with regard to their conservation contracts. So we are going to have a major decrease in food. And we're dealing with climatic crises all over the place, flooding, wildfires, drought. So we're concerned about that. And, but nobody's talking about that. So,
well, look, I mean, you guys are getting hit on all sides. The assault on the Department of Agriculture, the outrageous immigration raids taking place in farm country, and the attack on all the environmental provisions. all I can say is if we can have a breakthrough with some of these Republicans from the rural districts and we could get some of them to defect from this, then maybe we'd be able to throw a monkey wrench into what they're doing. I mean, even Trump, I think it was 2 Thursdays ago, said, "Oh, he heard from the Secretary of Agriculture. He's hearing from all the big agribusiness concerns that these ICE raids are killing farm country because they sweep some people away, arrest them, send them out of the country, not for any crimes, but just because of their documentation, and then nobody else will come to work." And so it's totally undercutting them. So Trump said, we're not going to enforce it anymore. And then Stephen Miller read him the Riot Act the next week, and then they reversed themselves. Then he said it again, and they reversed themselves again. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, they're trying to confuse the country. They are all on that side. And like you're saying, Rudy, it's a very dangerous situation.
Right. We have Kevin Camps, I believe he's your neighbor in Tacoma Park, who works on nuclear issues with Beyond Nuclear. It seems to me one wedge might be renewable energy. The biggest wind industries in the country are in Texas and Iowa. By far, Texas wind energy in Texas at night is too cheap to meter. They give it away free. And
Yeah.
the renewable industry really does cut across now party lines. Maybe it's a wedge. Kevin, do you want to raise that issue with your neighbor, Jamie?
Hello, Congressman Raskin. This is Kevin Camps with Beyond Nuclear. We are headquartered in Tacoma Park, Maryland, so
Of
very
course.
proud constituents of yours. I just wanted to, as Harvey's saying, wind and solar have been sabotaged at the state level, now at the federal level. Nuclear has enjoyed massive subsidies since the Manhattan Project. One issue I just wanted to ask your opinion about, since high-level radioactive waste transport routes go right through Tacoma Metro Station on the CSX rail line, how can we get consent for dump sites to be passed at the federal level? Because Trump does not support consent on multiple levels. But most recently, the Supreme Court just ruled against the state of Texas, saying no to a high-level waste dump in its western edge. So the fight is on to try to stop these dumps. We have state laws in Texas to New Mexico against them, but we're facing a freight train, not just metaphorically.
Yeah.
Kevin, as you know, Trump is not big on consent.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't support consent for sexual relations, much less nuclear dumps. But
Right.
well, look, I mean, it all comes back to our winning in the midterms. I mean, we've got to win the House back, and I hope the Senate back in order to cut this reign of terror in half, because these are not people who think they've got to negotiate with us in any way. I mean, it's a religious cult, and they think if they can maintain their margins and just keep all the Republicans in line, they're just going to steamroller us. Now, there are some Republicans like Nancy Mace from South Carolina who understand how dangerous pulling the plug on renewable energies and a lot of the projects that were authorized and funded under the Biden administration is. But instead of just opposing them, they're trying to get little carve outs. Everybody is engaged in special pleading. So instead of saying, well, no, let's not destroy all the progress we're making in wind and solar and so on, they want a carve out for their state, and
Right.
it's like if their state is going to get hit hard by dismantling Medicaid, they don't say, let's do something different, go ahead and throw 14 million people off of Medicaid, but we want a special deal for my state. Give us some funding. I mean, it's really unprincipled. We're just dealing with a gangster state where everything is a bunch of mafia side deals.
Yes, and renewables, as Kevin is a great pioneer, along with Carl Grossman, who's on with us. Renewables is really a key industry, especially as I mentioned in Iowa and Texas, where maybe we can make some headway. We also want to emphasize, Jamie, this has been an election protection call for 5 years now. We need to make it some kind of alliance with Mark Elias and the Democrats who are working on voter rights. Otherwise, we're not going to win in 26. We will win the popular vote. And, our line is that the 24 election was not stolen. It was bought and paid for. by Elon Musk, and we have issues from Florida 2000, Ohio 2004, 2016. If we don't protect the vote in 2026 and 28, but especially 26, we're not gonna, we're done.
Yeah.
So we haven't had much progress with the Democrats. You know, I was in Columbus and we wrote 6 books about what happened in Ohio. We were attacked by the Democrats. The Republicans couldn't have cared less. We got to get over that. That's a big plus. So I hope we've got an answer. And Ray McClendon is a key to that. So I hope you can work with Ray.
I absolutely will work with Ray. I've got time just for one more question, so forgive me.
Okay, Heidi Vertauer, go ahead, please, Heidi.
Yes,
Very quick,
I
60
wanted,
seconds.
yep, I thank you so much for taking my question. I want to say thank you for all of the on the ground work that you've done. I'm an ecological advocate and deeply concerned about climate change and want to see alternative renewable energy resources lifted up. And I want to know if you have been thinking of running for president, because I know that when Les Aspin ran for president, or not for president, but when he was given the role of from the House Armed Services Committee to the
Okay.
to the Secretary of Defense, that his positions, he wasn't as strong as he was.
Okay, Jamie?
My answer to you is yes, I am thinking about that.
Oh, good. Well, you remember what Jimmy Carter's mother said when he told her he was going to run for president? She said, of what? So I hope you're thinking of President of the United States. Jamie, we love you. Thank you for coming with us. We support you. It's great. We need your help on on voting rights, and we need your help on renewable energy. Thank you so much,
Love
man.
you guys back. Hang tough, everybody. Hang tough.
We will. As long as you're with us, we're hanging tough, bro. You take care. Thank you. And thank you, Mike Hurst, for bringing Jamie with us. What a great session. Thank you. All right, no nukes, everybody. Election protection. We're at 252. We have 265 people still with us. And we want to continue to talk. We've got some hands here. I want to call on Robert
Real
Milton.
quick, Sluggo.
Yes.
I noticed some people are leaving. Please don't go. Even though you came for Jamie, stick around. We've got a lot of good stuff.
Yes, and come back to us. We've been doing this for 5 years, since April. So we want to April 2020, and we love that everybody came with us. We had over 260 with us, and we will continue to have great people. I'd like you to get, if you can, Mike Pramila Jayapal to come back with us, and Marianne Williamson, if you're out there and want to jump in. I was looking for you to try and call on you.
He's gone,
We definitely
but
want
Kenny
you back.
Bruno is here.
Kenny Bruno. Kenny. Where are you, Kenny? I wanted to call on you, but you didn't raise your hand, and I didn't have an unmute for you. Kenny Bruno, if you want to jump in and make a couple of comments, please raise your hand. That would be great, okay? Robert Milton, Donald Smith, Howie Dewitt, Jeffrey Tardaglia, and Kenny Bruno, raise your hand. I want to call on you, please. Robert Milton, go ahead. And also, or is it Mitten? John Steiner, if you're with us. I saw you, but you didn't raise your hand either. So please jump in. Go ahead, Robert Milton. Robert?
I believe it is Mitten. Robert,
Mitten.
please go
Robert
ahead.
Mitten, please. Then Donald Smith, Howie Dewitt, Jeffrey, but we want to get Kenny Bruno and John Steiner with us. John, you've been co-hosted. Kenny, let's get you co-hosted as well. Go ahead. Donald Smith, unmute.
Robert is
Okay.
unmuted.
Oh, no. Oh,
Okay,
Donald.
go ahead. And
Robert Mitten.
Robert Mitten and Donald Smith, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, Representative Raskin about this book that I read by Washington Post's by 2 journalists, DC journalists from the Washington Post and Politico, called Unchecked, and in short, it blamed Nancy Pelosi for the failure of the impeachment of the 2 impeachments of Donald Trump. She dragged her feet on impeachments, didn't allow them to investigate. And Jamie Raskin is talked a lot about in those books. So I wanted to ask Raskin about it, but maybe other people have read it. It's an interesting topic.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
what's the name of the book?
Unchecked.
Okay, well, we'll check. Everybody check out Unchecked. Thank you for that.
Sluggo, I've got an insight on that. When W. Bush and Dick Cheney were committing war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot of us were organizing for impeachment at that point, including Congressman John Conyers at the time. And Nancy Pelosi ordered Conyers not to go forward with that because she felt that Newt Gingrich's downfall had to do with his impeachment of Bill Clinton over sexual misconduct. And so that was the lesson she got. So she was 100% against impeachment. So it's very plausible that she slow walked it.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, Bill Clinton should have resigned before dragging us to the impeachment nonsense. That's another story. Kenny Bruno, do you want to jump in? And John Steiner, please raise your hand. We'll get you unmuted if you want. Also, I want to say hi to Hetty Tripp. We have 230 people with us. Howie Dewitt, Jeffrey, and then Maggie Boyd. Go ahead, Howie, please. And then Heidi. And also Howie Hawkins, we want to hear from you again, too. Go ahead, Howie Dewitt.
Sure. So we talk a lot about principles on this podcast, but I'm wondering what is going on in terms of levers of power. So specifically things like the vote in New York where Kamala Harris got 0 votes in a particular district. I think it's called Rockland County.
Yeah.
That's, statistically impossible. So I'm wondering who's heading up any sort of activism around that. Another one would be so with Mamdani, it appears that a lot of his power comes from the fact that he's got a mom who is very well connected in media, very well connected internationally, and very connected as a professor. So what momentum we're building around that. And then as far as the final people power organization, so the No Kings was pretty successful. But we're also facing a lot of momentum questions around the fact that the agents are going with masks now. There's assassinations happening. People are showing up to city halls to protest, but what is going to sustain that movement?
Well, from your lips to God's ears, I hope we'll hear some good answers as we proceed. Thank you for that, Howie. Jeffrey Tardaglia, and then Maggie Boyd. Jeffrey, you're muted. Go ahead.
This is Jeffrey. I'm an advocate here in Sacramento, and on Wednesday, in front of the SB 42 is going to be coming up dealing with public financing. So it's just a heads up what California does of what's going on. But anyway, it's just an election time. 9 o'clock in the morning is going to be in front of the state capitol, room 444. That's just a heads up.
Thank you for that. And if you're in Sacramento and you can get that Gavin Newsom, tell him to stop killing the solar industry in California and to honor his agreement to shut Diablo Canyon. Totally outrageous that he stabbed us in the back on that nuclear plant. I mean, I'm in LA and I live every day in fear of the radioactive cloud that could come down from Diablo Canyon. So keep in touch with us, man, if you're in Sacramento, and let's get the assembly to stop killing our solar industry. It's outrageous. Thank you. Maggie Boyd, go ahead.
I'd like to know, I watched TV last night. Jamie Raskin was on, and he said there were 15 judges that were impeached throughout history. And this was all due to the fact that the Republicans want to impeach any judge that doesn't go their way. But I don't understand why, if judges can be impeached for bribery or income tax evasion or fraud or kickbacks, it sounds like Clarence Thomas checks all those boxes. Why isn't he being impeached?
Again, from your lips to God's ears, I wish we had an answer to that. They can't find him because he's on, yachts belonging to billionaires all the time. But very good, very well stated. Thank you for that. I've got people muted here. Howie Hawkins, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Okay, well, since you want to hear from me, I had a letter in the New York Times today, which is hard to do. I've been trying for years on the question of progressives and third parties. People might want to take a look at that. It's only 170 words. I was responding to Nate Cohn, who made the argument, he's one of their regulars, that the new third party is in the center, the new neoliberals, he called them. And he said, you know, they'd have backing from rich people. I just ridiculed that. And I said, according to the polls, where people stand on the issues, the political vacuum is on the left. I know a lot of people here think you can fill that in the Democratic Party. I got a 13,000 word article contesting that position that should come out from Punch pretty soon. So,
well, let's look up your letter, Steve. Maybe you can put the link to Howie's letter in the New York Times. I comment all the time in their electronic section, but you know, this party alignment that's happening in New York is going to be really interesting to follow. But anybody, all people counting on retaking the Congress in 26, the number one issue in the 26 is election protection. It's voting rights. I mean, all the other stuff, I think everybody, if you held the election of 26 now and then again in 26, it'd come out exactly the same if you had a fair vote count.
yeah, the hard question of third parties. Look at New York. Both parties are pro-nuke. Now they want to put new nuclear plants, build new nuclear plants in New York. Green Party can't get on the ballot to contest that. So,
okay,
you know, that's why you need at least a challenge from a third party a lot of times.
You're absolutely right. Okay, Robert Mitten. Thank you, Howie. Robert
Can you hear
Mitten,
me?
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and then John Seeley.
Great. I was hoping to catch Jamie. I'm glad that you had him on. I live in Concord, North Carolina, which is Cabarrus County, and we have a crazy problem going on here. The damn Democrats will not support the progressives. And okay, now the registered GOP voters outnumber the registered Democrats here in Cabarrus County by 1,000. Now the unaffiliated voters outnumber the Republicans by 1,000 and the Democrats by 2,000. I am a new member, or was a new member of the indivisible group here in Concord. And did I lose you guys?
No, you're here, but go ahead.
Okay.
Finish up. Finish up.
So they absolutely do not want to have anything to do with the progressives like me who voted for Bernie. One of the leaders of this group is saying that he can't wrap his mind around voting or supporting a progressive democratic socialist. And how are those Dems ever going to win if they don't take us in with them? I mean, they're already outnumbered.
Okay, that's a good point, and we really appreciate it, Robert, and good luck in North Carolina with your upcoming Senate race. That's going to be very interesting. John Seeley and then Nicole Ong, please, and then Myla Reeson.
Oh, just going back to something we were discussing an hour ago, I have to disagree with Howie Hawkins about wanting ranked choice voting in the final. I mean, Mamdani is much better off with trying to get a plurality than having to face a ranked choice thing in which all the media is hitting him from all sides. And the Cuomo people would be backing Adams as number 2 and vice versa. And we have to remember, although not many people believe it, there are Republicans in New York City. Trump got 37% in the Queens and more than a quarter in the Bronx and 1 Staten Island. And you don't want the Republican base combining with Cuomo's moderates, combining with Adams's Democratic black base. So I think
it's going to be very, and I guess Linder is not on the ballot, so that will be to Mamdani's advantage, no doubt. Thank you for that. Very interesting. Nicole and then Myla, Nicole Ong and then Myla Reeson.
Yes, I wanted to ask Congressman Raskin about his comment at one time that any of the cabinet members that disobey a judge order, they could be sentenced by the judge, the federal judge or something, and they could not be pardoned by Trump. And I was wondering if he could get those judges to hand down those sentences. And secondly, have you heard that Microsoft, Google, or Facebook they have a signed agreement with nuclear power energy to feed to whatever to generate their cloud computing.
Right. We've heard that, and it's really sickening. Thank you for bringing that up. I saw an article. They had a picture of a giant AI facility in Indiana, and they're pushing for nuclear. But there's no solar panels on the roof of this factory, which has got to be 1 million square feet. And I think there should be a law that no AI should go forward unless it produces its own power. I mean, why the hell should the rest of us subsidize with our health and our planet AI, which is only going to profit the billionaires? And while they whine and moan they need more power, but don't cover their rooftops with solar. So good point, Heidi. Thank you very much for that. Nicole, I mean, sorry, Myla Reeson, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Harvey. I wanted to jump in when I heard Howie say that all the Democrats in New York are pro-nuclear because and believe me, all across the country, we have a lot of very prominent Democrat senators and governors who are pushing for nuclear power. But in the state of New York, the Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, is challenging Kathy Hochul in the governor's race. And according to Mama Jo Green, who is a great campaigner to shut down Indian Point, she says that that Antonio Delgado will, in fact, be a leader for sustainable energy in the state of New York. So, no party is monolithic, and maybe he can partner with the Green Party to put forward a program for true sustainability in New York.
Yeah, that's an important point. I've been approached by Ron Leonard and others to maybe we should have Antonio Delgado on our call in a nonpartisan way to talk about renewables. Kevin Camps, if you're still with us, maybe, and Carl Grossman, New Yorker, maybe we should track down Antonio Delgado and have him on to talk about energy. Because, we've got the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Massachusetts now, Maureen Healey, and of course, this scoundrel Gavin Newsom in California, they're all supporting nuclear. All these so-called liberal Democrats. I mean, what the hell is going on here? It's outrageous. And so we need to deal with that. And good for you, Myla, for raising the issue of the lieutenant governor in New York. Myla, go ahead.
Yeah, let me add another point. We missed you yesterday at a wonderful gathering at Jan Goodman's house for an organization called Climate Defiance. And there are amazing young people who are working on climate issues, who are interrupting elected officials and really having some kind of acting the way that Greenpeace did years ago in terms of really true disruption and activism. There was a young man there who was the youngest advisor to a president. He was an advisor to Biden on energy policy. And I had a conversation with him. I was kind of, telling him that if it hadn't been for Biden's policy to throw billions of dollars at nuclear power, that there's a good chance that Gavin Newsom would not have insisted that we keep Diablo open and abrogate the agreement to shut it. And what this young man, who will join us in a future call, told me, and his name is Jerome. Okay, I'm at a loss. I don't have his name right in front of me, but what he told me is that he tried to get Biden to take subsidies from nuclear out of the legislation, that the climate legislation that put billions of dollars in the hands of the nuclear power industry. And he worked very hard to convince Biden not to do that, but Biden ignored him and he was discouraged about it. And I'm hoping to have him on a call to talk about that process and his work as an advisor.
Well, yeah, let's get him. Absolutely, please. Still have 180 people with us. Our attention span has not diminished. Hetty Tripp, and then we'll go to Steve Caruso. Thank you, Myla, and stay with us, please. Hetty, are you back in Minnesota?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what do you got for us?
Good morning, Sluggo.
Good morning, Heidi. Hetty, Hetty.
My question is, Mamdani is presumably a naturalized citizen because he wasn't born here and neither was I. Does anybody know about what's happening with this denaturalization process?
They're trying. You know, he might yet get arrested by masked ICE agents, not out of the question.
They say if you're under the domination of another country, then you're not a citizen. So if he's still a citizen of another country, they might use that as a wedge. Same situation with someone in my family. And they're like worried, well, am I going to get deported? And I'm like, no, because, you're a US citizen. But yeah, anything else, Teddy?
No.
Well, that's an interesting point. I have read that they are trying to denaturalize him. So,
Harvey,
Yeah,
Sluggo, there have been calls to deport him, not just
Yeah.
denaturalize him, but to get him out
So
of the country, send him to that gulag in El Salvador. Who knows?
Where is the Supreme Court on habeas corpus? I thought they ruled on that, said it was illegal to deport people. They're still grabbing people and deporting them and making them disappear. Back to the AI thing. Why is it intelligent to use nuclear power for computers? It's like the antithesis of artificial intelligence.
right.
That's
If artificial intelligence is so smart, why can't it get its own power source?
Yeah,
Why do we need to build nuclear power plants for this, alleged smart technology when they won't even put solar panels on their own rooftops? The hell's wrong with these people? Yeah, well, we all know. There's the reason for the Trump derangement syndrome is that Trump is deranged. So, there you go. Mike Hirsch, go ahead, and then we'll go back to Heidi. Anybody else raise their hand?
Just a couple quick answers to the imponderable questions that people keep asking and never listening to my answers. But I'm not going to I'm not going to stop answering these questions as long as people keep asking them. One, the Democrats are going to lose to the Republicans if they don't join with the progressives. Some Democrats don't care. They would rather lose to a Republican than win by joining with the progressives because they are sellouts. It's not a mystery. Follow the money. That's number one. Number two, why is there so much support for nuclear power when it's dangerous, extremely dangerous, vulnerable to attack, and not as efficient economically or in any other way as renewables?
Well, I'll
Follow the
tell you why.
money. Follow the
What?
money. It's so
Right.
we can bolster our nuclear arsenal to threaten other countries, and so the huge energy utilities can dominate and not have to buy back solar rooftop power from consumers and not have to worry about competing sources. It's all about money and power. So, it's nuclear power is about not only generating electricity, which it does extremely dangerously and expensively, it's also about economic power and military power. And just keep your mind on that. Don't take it at face value. They're not setting up or talking about these mythological tiny nukes that have never worked, are still on the drawing board, would never work, and would be even less defensible than the ones we have now. They're not doing it because they think it's efficient or it would save money or this, that, or the other. They're doing it because they are greedy, power hungry, and a little bit crazy, if not a lot crazy. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, we have to understand that the push for nuclear power is really coming from from the fossil fuel industry, because fossil fuels that industry is terrified, especially the gas industry, terrified of the rise of renewables, especially of decentralized renewables, of rooftop solar. And so the great, so-called high-tech exit to nowhere is nuclear power, because every dollar they spend on nuclear is $10 they take away from renewables. And so nuclear is a carefully calculated dead end to divert the train that's headed to a green-powered Earth. And so, but there is this interesting dynamic that there are some Republicans, especially in states, as I mentioned, like Iowa and Texas, that are hugely supportive of renewables because, wind power in Texas and Iowa, that's the number one and number two states in the country by a long shot to get electricity from wind power. And it would have been number three is Ohio, and that's a whole other story that I'll come back to in a bit. Heidi, and then Vina, and then Steve. Heidi Bertauer, and then Vina Colley, and then Steve Caruso.
Oh, cool. Hi, Vina. I'm wanting to know, first of all, is this a call about election protection too?
Of course.
So is this bill that's the big ugly bill that's up in Congress or Senate right now, is that something that has passed already, or is that something, because it seems to me like focus needs to be kept on that and making sure that if there are provisions about voting to squelch voting rights in that bill, that we should be putting all hands on deck to get that thing from being passed. And
well, it's interesting. There is a lot of anti-democracy stuff in the bill, but there's a monitoring process. There's an employee of the Senate, and I'm surprised that Trump hasn't had her rubbed out yet, that evaluates bills. And the Senate, there's a divider in the rules of the Senate where certain types of bills, which are strictly financial, can pass with a simple majority.
Sluggo,
other types of
Sluggo, real quick, that's the Senate parliamentarian, and you're talking about the so-called Byrd rule, where
yes, explain it, will you, Steve? Mike,
Okay.
Mike, can you give us a
Sure.
yeah,
Real
please, go
quick,
ahead.
in budget reconciliation, you can't filibuster the legislation. So instead of needing 60 votes in the Senate, you only need 51 or 50 plus a vice president.
Drummer guy.
Sorry about that. So if legislation or a provision in the legislation is not about the budget, the parliamentarian will say, no, this whole thing about, putting Trump on Mount Rushmore or whatever is not a budgetary item. Therefore, we're disallowing that under the Byrd rule. Does that clear it up, Sluggo, or anything else you need?
Well, does anybody, you know what they're calling it? They're calling it a bird bath.
Well, I can think of some other
And
Byrd
it comes from the
references.
Senator Byrd, who
Yep.
was in the Senate for 2.5 centuries, and he was a very strict parliamentarian, and he demanded so the differential between something that gets, as you pointed out, 50 or 51 votes, as opposed to requiring 60 votes, and which is filibusterable, filibusterable. Is life and death. And so the parliamentarian, as you point out, it is a woman, by the way. I don't know her name offhand. Someone could Google it quick. She is sitting and saying that certain stuff requires a filibusterable vote as opposed to a simple majority.
Yep.
And I'm sure that Trump is plotting to whatever to her, because she is ruling against him on certain stuff, right?
Yep. But the parliamentarian gummed up a lot of things that the Democrats were trying to do as well. and the
Right.
Democrats didn't challenge it. The Republicans will routinely say, we understand your ruling, we're not going to go along with it. Again, like you said, Sluggo, the parliamentarian works for the Senate. Parliamentarian isn't like the president of the Senate or in control of the Senate.
Right. And Kevin Camps, if you can jump in, I want to know the situation with outright handouts to the nuclear industry in this bill. I'm unclear if they're just taking away the subsidies and now wanting to tax renewables, or are there outright subsidies in this bill straight for the nuclear industry? I don't know the answer to that. I assume you do. Let's go to Vina Colley. Vina,
Kevin's
can we
here.
unmute
You wanna
Vina and then we'll go to
answer that?
Steve?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, one reason that they've been pushing small modular reactors as a safe, clean energy, and I don't think anyone was lobbying about how bad it was, and so they think they can put these small modulars at Piketon and other sites, and we're getting clean energy. But what we're doing, we're getting the same waste that we had with the large reactors as we are with these small reactors. So it's not any better. It's still just as bad, and they don't know what they're going to do with the waste. And I want to also mention about RICA and the compensation bill. I feel, and a lot of us feel, that they were using these victims to try to push this great bill that the Republicans were trying to push. They were using the victims to try to get that passed. And we found out that they was going to slash Medicare, Medicaid, and these ZAP programs, and we got the word out. So instead of pushing for RICA, we had to turn around and have them to deny RICAs because it wasn't a good deal. And they've left a lot of us out of that compensation bill. They got the 2 gas diffusion plants in that bill, but Portsmouth, who's worse than both of Oak Ridge and Paducah, was left completely out of the bill because they continue to do production here. They got the high assay low enriched uranium going in the GSEP project, and they've been doing this since October of 23. They were supposed to start it up and do samples, but they haven't shut it down yet. So they have plans here to keep producing here at Piketon. And they don't care if we're 107% of childhood cancer, higher than the national average here. I mean, these kids, our family people are dying here.
Well, Joe Mangano, who we've had on before, is just coming out with a study that shows that when nuclear power reactors close, the infant death rate plummets. There is a direct connection between the operation of a nuclear power plant and infant death rates in the neighborhood. And Vina, you may want to take a look at his study. I don't know if you're in touch with Joe, but it's very important. We're going to go to Steve Caruso. Thank you, Vina. Steve Caruso, and then I want to ask Kevin Camps directly about subsidies in Trump's bill, and then we'll go to Patricia and Heidi. Folks, we usually go to 4:20, but California time, but I think we're going to cut it short today because we had a great visit with Jamie Raskin. And I do want to have, by the way, we do want to have an open forum on the Iran situation. We got cut off on that last week. So if you've got anything you want to say about the Iran bombing, which seems like 2 years ago already, please use this time for that. Kevin Camps, do you want to, Steve Caruso and then Kevin. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Kevin Camps is going to be the next guy to invent something that goes beyond nuclear. Take it, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, it's been a long time coming for these subsidies for nuclear power. We had hoped when Trump said he was going to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bills, that would include the nuclear power bailouts. But what's happened, what's very clear now at a place like Palisades in Michigan is the nuclear power bailouts are flowing completely at 100% levels, while renewables and other good ideas are being nixed completely if they can get away with it. But as I said earlier, this sabotage of wind and solar and efficiency and even storage goes way back, years, decades even. So there's no surprises here, as nightmarish and awful as it all is. We don't know what's in the big, beautiful bill. Like Congressman Raskin said, we won't know until the Senate votes what's even in there. That's how lacking in transparency this all is, to put it mildly.
So we actually don't know. When will we know if they want to stick direct subsidies for nuclear power into this bill.
Once the Senate votes, that's what the House has to vote on for it to go to the president's desk. So the Senate passage, whatever passes, then we'll know if we're ready to read something that's probably thousands of pages long in a great big hurry.
Kevin, the Senate did vote. And right now we anticipate it going back to the House. The House might say we voted on something close enough and do an okey doke on us. So we got to be real careful. And I'm going to drop into the chat a link people can use to contact their member of the House and both of their senators to tell them to vote no on this brutal budget bill. It mainly focuses on healthcare because we think that that is what will move the Republicans that we need. Most of the Democrats are already clearly against it.
Mike, you said that when did the Senate vote on this?
I think that they've already voted to move forward on it, and that has signaled that they have enough votes. So what they're doing right now is kind of mucking around, giving special favors to certain senators to keep them on board. It's likely that two Republican senators will vote no, and we need like 5 to vote no. And so we're right up against it. But I think the Senate vote, all we can do is hope that the bill is so different that the House will not support it. It passed the House by 1 vote, but they did that with another okey doke. They let people that they didn't need vote no or vote present or duck the vote entirely because they're in purple districts and they could face ramifications from their voters. It's pretty complicated, but they're running a scam on us, and we need to call and contact our members of the House and the Senate and tell them to vote no, because people are going to actually die. And just about everything that you can think of that can be put in legislation that's terrible, from Sluggo, you mentioned the tax on clean actual renewables and subsidies for nukes. Cutting things that people need and giving money to people who are just greedy and have no needs in the world. So I see people in the chat are saying still need to call senators to vote no. Yes, do that. But the fix is in. We need to try to unfix the fix.
Mind-boggling. Thank you, Pat. Mike. Patricia Gratian, and Heidi again quickly, and John Seeley. Folks, we're gonna end at 4, as opposed to 4:20 this week. So, and if you want to talk about Iran, please call, because last week we did not have the roundtable we should have had. Carl Grossman, if you want to chime in on this guy who might run for governor of New York, that would be good if you know him, or anything about him. Patricia Gratian, go ahead, and Heidi, John, and Nina Singer. Maybe I'll call on you next, Nina, because I think you have to leave. But go ahead, Patricia.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to remind folks that are flummoxed about all this huge interest in nuclear power. Please remember that both artificial intelligence and the crypto crap, both of them depend heavily on huge amounts of energy. So these people are bound and determined to reduce all regulations on the fossil fuels and to push nuclear as hard as they can because they're desperate for energy. That's all I want.
Right. And they can't bother to cover their huge buildings with solar panels on the rooftop.
Exactly. I don't know why.
Because nuclear power is fascist energy. Nuclear power is fascism. And they want to keep control of the energy supply, which they cannot do with solar panels.
And also the military, right?
Right. So in the eyes of the billionaires in this country, solar panels are Bolshevism. They're a form of communism in their view. And their power on energy comes through fossil fuel and nuclear power, and they can't deal with renewables. That's the problem for them. Thank you for that, and stick with us. Nina Singer, I know you have to go, and then we'll go back to Heidi. Go ahead,
Just a quick thing regarding calling the senators. I've been going on a blitz for the last couple of days, calling my two lovely senators, Rick Scott, who's, well, don't even get me started, and Ashley Moody. I called Josh Hawley. I called Colin Murkowski. Who else? I called one other one, you know, just to say, please vote no on the bill. And I told them also this thing with Planned Parenthood that they want to get rid of. I'm telling them, I'm just laying it on. You know, it says, you know what? Think about your constituents, not about, I don't want to say bowing down to Trump and following an order, but if they really care about the constituents, why don't, you know, they're just cowards. They're cowards. You know,
Right. A senator you might want to add to the list now is Tom Tillis from North Carolina.
Oh yeah, Tom Tillis. He's voting no. He's voting no. Rand Paul's voting no. We need Hawley, we need Collins, we need Murkowski. I left messages for them, left messages for Ron Johnson as well. But who knows what he goes? He flip-flops. But
Right.
we need three more, just three.
Well,
Well,
Rick Scott of Florida is one of the most abominable people to ever walk the face of the
I
earth.
have more names for him, and I wouldn't say this here. All these other 141 people. What he did to the Medicaid system when he was governor, it's like biggest con artist in the world.
Terrible, terrible. And now they're talking offhandedly about putting a detention facility in the
Oh,
Everglades, as if the Everglades are just a parking lot. I
now
mean,
wait a
they
minute.
laid the
Isn't there?
foundation for years to save the Everglades, and now these jerks want to put some kind of prison in there. I mean, you know, it's like what?
Alligator Alcatraz. There's a big protest happening there tomorrow in Miami. If anybody here on the call left over is down in that area, a lot of
Yeah,
people have been down there, the environmentalists. Isn't there a provision, you know, about the sacred land? Because that's all from the Miccosini tribe.
the Miccosukee. Yeah, I don't
Miccosukee,
know,
I
but
meant to say, I'm sorry.
that's all right. That's all right. Well, you know, the alligators at Mar-a-Lago might be interested. So we'll see about that.
And
Thank you for
4th of
that.
July, there are protests too, so.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for that. Let's see. Anybody else want to jump in? Kenny, if you're still with us, John Steiner. John Seeley, go ahead, please, and Nicole, and then Steve.
Well, yes, I didn't want to let stand the sort of pessimistic thing of, well, it's all fixed in the Senate and let's move to the House, because the latest bulletins from the Hill are, you know, Thune still has to nail down Murkowski and Collins, and there are some conservatives who aren't certain because they're pressing for an amendment for further cuts on Medicaid. And I mean, someone in the chat says, well, is Fetterman's going, oh, I just want to go home. So maybe people in Pennsylvania or around there should call Fetterman and say, well, hang in there. And, but, you know, there's still Senator Curtis in Utah who's uneasy about the land sale, federal land sale. So
I think they
don't get,
killed the land sale. I think the
they, yeah,
land sale is out.
they pulled that. They pulled that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But, you know, keep the pressure on in Maine and Alaska and Pennsylvania. And yeah, call Ron Johnson and tell him, you know, stick to your guns, Ron. You know, we can't expand the deficit.
well, it's insane. Carolyn in the chat says they killed the land sale and then put it back in.
Oh,
Anyway, okay. Thanks, John. Nicole Ong again, then Steve, and then Heidi. Anybody else want to jump in? Also, if you want to talk about Iran and all that, I do actually. We're just going to go to the top of the hour. 27 more minutes. Go ahead, Nicole. Nicole Ong, are you unmuted?
Yeah. You know, Carl Grossman was unmuted and he can turn his video on if he's wants since he's co-hosted. So anybody so Carl, you want to talk?
Carl, did you want to say anything about the Lieutenant Governor of New York? I don't know anything about him. Do you?
Yeah, he's refreshing and he's challenging Hochul, and he's a promoter of renewable energy to deal with climate change. But it's not clear so far whether he opposes nuclear power.
Ron Leonard told me he does. But, you know, let's find out and let's see if we need to talk to him. I mean, I'm sure he'll come visit you. So, but this is important. I mean, if a governor of New York is going to support nuclear power, she's got to go. I mean, this is just ridiculous. So, if this guy's an alternative, let's figure it out. Okay,
And
thanks.
Ron Leonard was here earlier, but he left. Nicole is now unmuted.
Yes, I'm picking up on the bill. Besides those two, I watch on PBS News Hour. They mentioned like about 8 more senators that could be voting for it, and I'm surprised to see that Rick Scott is one of those that might vote no. I know Fetterman voted no, and so if somebody can watch the PBS Hour and call those other 8 that could be voting no. In addition, regarding the Iran bombing, I read some that one of the reasons why Trump bombed it was because he wanted to have access to the antimony, because the Chinese are stopping shipment of antimony to the United States to whenever it's going to be used for arms. And then regarding the nuclear power, don't all those nuclear plants need the water? Can we get at them through the water, restricting, water, something to them?
They've had that problem. It's a good point. Milo Reason has pointed out that the 3 reactors in Arizona at Palo Verde evaporate gargantuan quantities of water in the desert every day. And the LA Times has been running some articles about water without ever mentioning Palo Verde. And they also ran a big story about the San Andreas, never mentioning Diablo Canyon, which could be totally turned to rubble by the San Andreas fault. But good points, Heidi, Nicole. And the question is, if Trump finds himself losing on this bill in the Senate, who's he going to bomb next? Is he going to bomb Greenland or Canada? I mean, it's become very clear. And Carl, and I'm sure other people, Kevin, it's very obvious that the bombing of the facilities in Iran have absolutely no impact on their ability to make a nuclear weapon. I mean, you can buy, as I mentioned before, Nagasaki and Trinity, those 2 nuclear bombs required less than 15 pounds of plutonium. I mean, you can get 15 pounds of plutonium on eBay, for God's sakes. It's nothing. There are tons of plutonium all over the world. If, God forbid, Iran wanted to drop a nuclear weapon on Jerusalem, they've got, and building a nuclear bomb these days is like, assembling a lawnmower. I mean, anybody can do it. The plans for a nuclear bomb were published in the Progressive magazine in 1994. So obviously, Trump's bombing had zero real impact on the ability of Iran or anybody else to cause a nuclear holocaust. All Iran would have to do, or anybody else, is to send a single drone into any one of the 440 reactors going on worldwide. So that whole Iran thing, as I said to Jamie, the real target of the bombing in Iran was not Iran or their weapons program. It was the 5 million people who marched in the No Kings demonstrations. That's who the real target was. Because one minute we're talking about No Kings, and the next minute everybody's talking about Iran. That's Trump's forte, is changing the topic and turning over the table. Very quickly, Kevin, go ahead, and then we'll go back to Michael Zeusen has jumped in. Kevin Camps, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out how remarkable it was that somebody leaked the Pentagon intelligence on how little damage was done effectively to the Iranian nuclear sites, and the Trump administration, all the way up to Trump, went ballistic, pardon the pun, to the point of trying to change the subject and blaming Democrats for talking bad about the bombers themselves on the stealth bombers. So they've gone way out of their way to try to conceal the truth. But Iran, no surprise, very likely moved the highly enriched uranium, 60% enriched, and even centrifuges before Trump pulled the trigger. So
they were warned ahead
yeah,
of time
that's
by
all true.
Trump. It's just a big show. It's just a big freaking game with these guys.
Well,
Imagine.
just for reference, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, the atmosphere is only breathable atmosphere is only 3 miles high. You got 92 reactors in the United States putting out heat. You got the rest of the world with these reactors putting out heat. You know, it's ridiculous. We got heat that can be used to solarize the whole planet, but you know, whatever.
Right. And you know, just for point of reference, Hiroshima required 150 pounds of enriched uranium. That's what it was. And the Iranians are known to have at least 900 pounds of enriched uranium that they protected. So they've got enough for 6 Hiroshimas and God knows how many Nagasaki's with their plutonium supply. So, you know, it's all ridiculous. And anyway, Michael Zeusen, you haven't spoken yet. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah, so look, I'm 66. I went to nuclear chemical biological school in the Army for a week. I just went on to Jimmy Carter's speech about energy in 1977 when I graduated high school. Yeah, I mean, I just got to get it off my chest. We should be using solar panels all over the country right now. There's enough solar energy to power the planet. Plutonium-239 is the isotope is radioactive for 24,000 years. We got no place to put the high level of radioactive waste. Again, it's Republicans. Republicans are the problem. The house where I grew up on, that my parents sold and moved to a higher price exurb, has solar panels on it. The neighbor in California where I'm living right now has solar panels. It's working fine. Alaska is heating up. I lived in Alaska. Alaska's ridiculous anymore. It doesn't even really get cold like it used to. And and it's 102 degrees in Paris today. So,
oh my God.
yeah, I don't know what to say. Go Democrats.
Well, was that?
Get the education out there. I mean, these nuclear executives, chemical and petroleum executives don't know the science behind it, obviously, because they're mortgaging their grandkids' future. Look at it.
Yeah, my grandchildren. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for that. It was 102 in Paris. It was 108 last week in New Jersey. 108, and I was swimming in a pool, and the pool they couldn't cool it. It was into the 90s. The swimming pool, unreal. Michelle Anonymous, you haven't spoken, Michelle?
Yeah, I just was, my thought was that it might have been the lesser of evils, or it might have been a better thing if they did manage to secure and move that nuclear, that uranium material before the place was bombed. I mean, wouldn't it be much worse if they had bombed the place and that uranium had gotten, blown up and radiated everywhere?
Well, there's a devil's bargain for you. The other thing they could do is just, put some dirty plutonium or uranium on a stick of dynamite, unfortunately, and then you've got a dirty bomb that can do God knows how much damage. But you're right about it, Michelle. Very interesting dichotomy there. Thank you. Heidi Vertauer, again, Heidi.
Can you hear me?
We have 17 minutes left. If anybody wants to jump in, we're going to adjourn at the top of the hour today. Go ahead for Heidi.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned that we're all talking about us versus them in regards to nuclear and solar and wind and Hydro-Quebec stuff and also wind and sorry, I'm being ineloquent. Nuclear. What's the other? Nuclear and
fossil fuels.
Fossil fuels. Thank you. At least I didn't swear. I'm I'm really concerned because I think that if we don't look towards what the people that are part of the fossil fuel and nuclear industries are, the reasons why they want to keep their industries alive is because they've got these jobs that are very cushy and good for them. And we need to figure out a way to make it possible for those people to want to do the transition. And I think it's going to entail having town meetings, and that's one of the things that's in my proposal that I have. And I really think that if people were to look at that and to look at the possibility um of doing a group thing that we can get together on, a town hall type meetings, not just where everybody's invited and everybody feels welcome. I think that that would be another much more friendly way to help this transition happen, where people are, if people do, who are getting paid a lot of money right now, who are getting the kickbacks from the stuff on from the money and the things that they're getting from the government right now, if we have a way to provide a path for those people to say, oh, I can still earn money by doing the tradition, the new transition to the green energy economy, and I don't have to worry about like my family going hungry, you know.
Well, that's a very, very good point. At Diablo Canyon, when what happened was Jerry Brown, the governor of California, at the time, in the early 2010s, decided to come up with a phase-out plan for the two reactors at Diablo Canyon, about 1,500 employees. And for 2 years, the unions, the power company, the regulators, the assembly, they met and they formulated a plan, a phase-out plan, where Unit 1 would shut in 24 and Unit 2 in 25, and they would phase in a transition to 100% renewables for the state of California. And it involved very comprehensive plans for the employees at Diablo to phase into renewable energy jobs. And it was all worked out. And Gavin Newsom, Lieutenant Governor, signed it. And then 22, he stabbed us in the back and put it on the shelf. Just unbelievably outrageous. So you raise a good point, and it has been thought of. Carl, and then Tatanka, please.
Yeah, I just put on the chat a link to a TV program I did just a while back with retired Commander Robert Greene. Now, he was in the British Navy, and he was a bombardier and a navigator on a British bomber with a target Leningrad for years and years. And then during the Falklands War, he was an advisor to the military command, the British military command. And what he told me, it's right there in the TV program, that during the Falklands War, there was a British plan to nuke Argentina, to nuke Buenos Aires. I mean, it just shows how close we have come to nuclear disaster, through the decades. I mean, only in recent times we see the situation with Iran or the threats by Putin to use nuclear weapons. It's just by the skin of our teeth that since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it hasn't come again, but it inevitably will come again. And what I've advocated in my writings and my TV program, which is on Free Speech TV, because nuclear power and nuclear war are just two sides of the same coin, is that what we must do for our children and their children and their children to survive is what the world did after World War I when it outlawed chemical warfare. It was a series of treaties after the mustard gas and all these terrible poisons used during World War I. And in my view, really, quite really, I mean, realistically, what we have to do is, and I mentioned this in our last call, to make the entire planet a nuclear-free zone. No nuclear weapons, no nuclear power, which any country or any group that has access, as Harvey was just talking about, to a reactor has the plutonium to create a bomb. And this, I mean, the doomsday clock now of the Bulletin of Concerned Scientists is closer to midnight, which stands for nuclear apocalypse, than it's ever been since it was created in 1946. And if we're going to make it, if there's going to be a future, we have to eliminate nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and nuclear power from this planet.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carl. And if you can get us a line on this guy in New York, the lieutenant, I guess the lieutenant governor, maybe, who let's have talk about him maybe next week.
Yeah.
And see what that possibility is. And
yeah,
if he's anti-nuclear, let's get him on.
Yeah, I just again Googled, for what it's worth, Delgado and whether he's against nuclear power. But what I got, and there was multiple sources there, is that, as I mentioned just earlier, he's for renewable energy, particularly because of the importance of solar and wind and so forth, and deal with climate change. But what the reports, I mean, this might be premature, and that fellow you mentioned earlier might know something that Google doesn't, which is quite possible. It doesn't reflect any, at this point, anti-nuclear position by Delgado. And
all right, well, let's get to him.
And it would be very important if he was anti-nuclear, because at this point, not only is Hochul very pro-nuclear. I mean, she has drunk the nuclear Kool-Aid, but the likely Republican candidate for governor is Elise Stefanik, who's an upstate congressperson, and she is gung-ho nuclear power. So it may end up this year that we'll have in New York State, of all places, two candidates for governor who are gung-ho pro-nuke. And if there's an alternative, I think it would be so important.
So,
all right, well, maybe you should run, Carl. Miley, go ahead, and then
let me just reiterate that it was Mana Joe Green, the great anti-nuclear activist who helped to shut down Indian Point, who is vouching for Antonio Delgado.
All right, well, let's
do
get
some more research on that and see if
let's see what we can do. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you both, Tatanka, and then we'll go to Howie, Donald, and then we'll pretty much be out. Go ahead, Tatanka.
Yeah, there's so many people to thank here. Thank you, Carl, for talking about the intimate connection with nuclear war and nuclear energy. The only reason for its existence, nuclear power, was to create fissile material. Thank you, Harvey, for talking about all that plan that Heidi talked about. That was totally worked out with Diablo Canyon. There was a path the unions bought in. There was a path for the unions in the solar field, and they knew it. It was built into that program. So what's been subverted is coming from the top. I guess the other thing I'm really grateful to Mike and to Harvey for bringing Jamie on. How wonderful he is consistently. And thank you, Howie, for all your work that you've done. So I just want a reminder, I've been a drumbeat about this. This is a long process. I mean, the whole energy thing and the warfare thing. So going back, at the latest, the 15th century, we're talking about the whole colonial experiment. The elite of Europe had a name for themselves, the people that financed the people that colonized Africa and Asia and the Americas. And they called themselves the Northern Industrial Alliance. Alan Dulles wrote the mission statement for the CIA. The mission statement for the Northern Industrial Alliance was to avail ourselves of the raw materials of planet Earth to which we are entitled. The mission statement of the CIA, to avail ourselves of the raw materials of planet Earth that support our way of life. There's a connection with all this. 50 years ago, I heard from a consultant with the Royal Dutch Shell who worked intimately with Exxon in 1978. They knew climate change was real. They'd done their studies. They knew that they were the primary culprits, and they went another way. And we know the story, you know, creating climate denial, going through the Koch brothers, etc. Their 50-year plan, I heard about from him, from my friend in 1978, was after getting the panels off the White House, and there would be a whole new change of government. You wouldn't hear about solar and how it would build up again. By 2020, they would be championing solar, wind, all the renewables, but because they intended to own every aspect of energy in the world. And those things would be phased into the century-long project that would keep the extractive industries going. We're dealing with a global criminal conspiracy, global criminal enterprise to maintain militaries, to maintain the control of resources. So here we are, we're living through this. They also count on us not to be able to get out of our silos with our favorite issue. They work the 20% of the 80-20 equation. They know we're 80% of the people. Minority government has been always the agenda. So yes, I don't know. We need what? Our new constitutional convention with all these brilliant ideas of the future we really want. We need some way of bringing the progressive agenda, the progressive vision, to have enough allies for a broad coalition to make a difference starting now through 26 and 28. It's not that we can't do it, but that's the job we have to do. We cannot be fighting each other over and get overwhelmed because they know what they're doing. They're hitting us, you know, on the warfare issue. You know, Hitler got distracted right when they could have conquered England. You know, don't go in two directions. Well, they're going in 100 directions. Everybody in this criminal enterprise is getting their hand out and fighting over the money right now. That's the only thing they're fighting over, is how much money they can each grab from this. And as far as I can see, they don't have a vision for the future of the planet. Wherever they go with that, I don't know, but they're not particularly cared. It's very clear. So it's up to us, with the kind of positivity that Jamie exudes and people on this call exude, that we build a broad coalition now so that we can make a difference in 2026, make a difference in 2028. Meanwhile, get on the phone now. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tatanka. Much appreciated. Very well spoken. Howie, Donald, and I think we're going to do it.
Well, if we're going to run Carl Grossman against two pro-nuke Democrat and Republicans, we've got to change the election law in New York. It now takes 45,000 signatures in 42 days. That's triple the former standard, thanks to Andrew Cuomo. It's 3 times as hard to get on the ballot as an independent in Putin's Russia to get into the Duma from a state, oblast. And Kennedy spent $1 million to try to get on for president. Jill Stein spent 300,000, and all we had was Trump and Biden on the ballot. So that's important. I'm sorry, Jamie forgot my third question about the Conyers federal standards for fair ballot access. It's been 35 years since there's been a bill like that in Congress. So those of you that have closer touch with Jamie Raskin, he's probably our best prospect for getting a bill like that introduced. And then, you know, those of us out here in the grassroots can then organize around it. But, you know, ballot access, we talk about the right to vote. Well, part of that is the right to vote for who you want. And if your candidates can't even get on the ballot, your voting rights have been circumscribed.
Absolutely, Howie. Very well said. Howie, do it, and then we'll end with Mike Hirsch, who brought us Jamie today. Go ahead, Howie, and then Mike.
I'd like to follow up Tatanka's statements with the boots on the ground power, right? Mamdani's mother is somebody who's well connected in media, but well connected in many other places. I put in the link in the chat to some of those connections around the world because it's both about narrative and it's also about momentum with on the ground organizing.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Howie.
you.
Let's slip in. Oh, thank you for that, Howie. Let's skip in Donald Smith and then we'll let Mike Hirsch take us away. Go ahead, Donald.
Okay, yeah, Harvey, I sent you an email from this anti-nuclear activist, Jerry Pollitt in Washington State. I'm always getting emails from him about the danger of nuclear waste seeping into the Columbia River from the Hanford Nuclear Power Plant in eastern Washington. And so there was a problem before, but now with the Trump administration, they're even lowering the money that they devote to clean up there. And there's very high level waste. It says they said that it's so high that 2 minutes of exposure to the soil would be lethal, and it's only like 1,000 feet from the Columbia River. So he's always playing for. So maybe you want to invite him to talk here sometimes because I think he needs exposure.
Our connection up there is Mimi Gurman, so we'll do that. Thank you, Donald. We appreciate it. I want to point out, by the way, they're building a very large solar farm at the Hanford facility in eastern Washington State. So let's talk about that too. Okay, Mike, you get to take it away. Thank you again for Jamie and everything else. No nukes, everybody. Please join us again next week. Mike, go ahead, Mike Hirsch.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Howie, let's get together on that Conyers legislation. I know that Jamie was very close to John Conyers when they were both on the Judiciary Committee together. And it sounds like really good legislation. We shouldn't let it languish in obscurity. We need to bring it forward. Jamie mentioned a right to vote, a constitutional amendment. Maybe we could also get a right to run constitutional amendment and strip away all these barriers to ballot access. It's bad enough that you have to raise as much money as you mentioned. That's ridiculous. And we shouldn't have the Democratic corporation, the Republican corporation dominating our elections. We need to get corporations out of control of our lives. We need to all of us need to say, make oligarchs F off, mofo, and take back our society for people, not these corporations.